welcome to a new vlog and video of the cruise vibes, and today it's day 2 on the Excellence Princess. In the last video we've started our cruise on the Main-Danube Canal and on the Danube in Bamberg, and today we are in Nuremberg, and from there we are continuing on heading to the Danube. So here on the map you can see our route today, and we are starting early in the morning after breakfast. It was already time for me to leave the ship. Excellence offered a free bus to the city center, and there was also an excursion that you could have booked, but I decided to go on my own. I have the so-called Deutschland ticket, which allows me to use all public transport in Germany, and therefore I could just easily walk to the next tram station and go to the city center with my own timings. If you want to walk from the port of Nuremberg to the city center, it's too far, as we are on a rather new canal which is quite far away from the city center obviously. But from your ship you just have to go up to the bridge, and either you go to the left, there's a bus stop, or if you are able to walk a bit further, I would recommend just going to your right. Then you have to walk about 20 minutes to reach a tram station, and the tram will take you directly to the city center. One advantage, on your way you can turn right here, and then you will reach the Ludwig-Donau-Main-Canal, so Ludwig-Danube-Main Canal, and that is the predecessor of the Main-Danube Canal. It's a quite old canal that is not in use anymore, but there are still a few remains of it, and you can take a look at them here in Nuremberg, for example. And then I was taking the tram to the so-called Reichsparteitagsgelände, which is of course part of the dark side of the history of Germany, but it's very important to remember everything that happened and to visit places like this. There is a museum right next to it, which you should visit if you've never been here. I've already seen a museum, so I decided to just take another look at this, very impressive but sad buildings. As you can see, the size of this building is insane. It's very impressive. Of course, it's not easy to visit places like this, especially if you're on a holiday. Probably you want to spend your days with more positive things, but in my opinion this is a must if you're visiting the city of Nuremberg, to also take a look at the dark history of Germany and all like places like this. So I decided to visit this place, and also it's just interesting to see these buildings. My next stop was the so-called Große Straße, the Great Street, which is nowadays just a parking lot, but of course was earlier on used for parades. And from there you can walk to your left and you will reach an enormous stadium and a so-called Zeppelinfeld, which was also of course used by the Nazi party, but nowadays it is, for example, used as a racetrack. So this is the Norisring, that's why you have the yellow marks here on the ground. But few parts of this former stadium are still there, and you can just access them for free. There is no entrance fee, and you can just roam around on your own. You will get a bit of information from a few signs, but that's currently it. But in the near future it will also be possible to go into this building, and there will be a proper museum, but that is currently under construction. But still, it is worth a visit. Here you can see one of the signs where you get information about this place and what happened here. So this is my number one recommendation if you're visiting Nuremberg for the first time, even though it is of course very sad to see all of these buildings if you do know what happened here. But of course it's very important to visit places like this. But of course you should also visit the city center of Nuremberg, because there are also positive things to do here, and Nuremberg is a very beautiful city. I've seen it multiple times, but for you I took another tour through the city center. I would recommend taking the tram to the station Rathenauplatz, and from there you can walk in about 15 minutes to the castle of Nuremberg. And from the castle you have this fantastic view over the city, and this is a good place to start because from there it's only going downhill, so it's a quite easy walk, and I would recommend visiting the castle. From there you can go down to the Albrecht Dürer house with a very nice square around it. So also the place around the house is very, very nice and worth a visit, of course, with a lot of half-timbered houses. Then you can walk down the Albrecht-Dürer Street, which you can see here, and you will reach the Weisgerbergasse with some more very beautiful half-timbered houses. Then you will reach the river Pegnitz, where you can see this beautiful bridge, and you will get to the Max Bridge. And there you have this fantastic view from this bridge. And after that you will reach the main city center with the shopping possibilities. If you have time, you could visit one of the most famous chefs of Germany at the restaurant Alexander Hermann. And shortly before you reach the main station, you can also visit the so-called Handwerkerhof. Those are not originally old buildings, they are just rebuilt, but it's still worth visiting. And from the main station you can take the tram back to the ship. The station closest to the ship is called Finkenbrunn. From there it's about 20 minutes of walking, and then I was back at the ship, already being one of the last guests to be back on board, but of course on time. After that was time to leave our docking location in Nuremberg, and it was also time for lunch. Lunch was also quite nice. Starters are to be taken from the buffet. Some main courses can also be taken from the buffet, and some are served at the table, and the dessert is always served at the table, and coffee service is also available. After that we met an oncoming ship, and that was a new built freight ship. So as you can see, this ship was not finished yet. It will be transported from one shipyard to another one, and here you can see pretty good why the sun deck is closed on the Main-Danube Canal, because the bridges are extremely low for the whole duration of the sailing on the canal. On some ships the front part may be open, but mostly it will be closed, and during nighttime it will always be closed. Here you can see it once again, how low these bridges are. River cruise ships are exactly constructed to be as big as possible to still fit under exactly those bridges here. So you will spend a bit more time inside, but it's still very interesting. Of course, also the landscape on a canal is not as spectacular as on a regular river, but still there are quite a few interesting things to see. For example, right now we are on a bridge with a river cruise ship. Yes, we are on the bridge. As you can see, there's a river and a street below us. Of course, you will not find something like this on a regular river, but on a canal you can see things like this. This is one of the biggest bridges that you can cross with a ship in Germany, so this is also very impressive. Landscape wise, it's not too spectacular to sail on the Main-Danube Canal. It's mostly a rather flat landscape. You can see some forests, some fields, but it's not too spectacular. What is spectacular are the locks. And now we are reaching 3 locks, which are the highest in Germany. The first one is the Lok Leerstetten, followed by the Lok Eckersmühlen and the Lok Hilpoltstein. All of them have the same dimensions. They are 190 meters long and 12 meters wide, and they have a height of 24.67 meters, so almost 25 meters in height. So this is very, very spectacular. The ship is 11.45 meters wide, the log is 12 meters wide. Also, you can see that the entrance is quite low, so there is not a lot of space in any direction, so it is very spectacular to go into these locks. And once you're in, you can see these concrete walls of 25 meters, which is also extremely impressive, as you can see here. So for me, this is one of the highlights of a cruise on the Main-Danube Canal, to see those impressive locks. Very, very spectacular in my opinion. You kind of feel very small when you're on the ship going into one of these huge locks. Of course, it will take some time to get the ship in the lock. Also, it takes some time to go up 25 meters, so you have a lot of time to enjoy the view. And I would recommend going outside. If the sun deck is open, to go on the sun deck, but most probably it won't be open. Some captains may open the sun deck just when the ship went inside and close it afterwards again. But also from the front terrace, for example, you can have a nice view of this lock. If you stay inside the ship, it's not as spectacular because you just see the concrete walls on the side, but you cannot see how high the lock actually is. On this ship, you can see it from the glass roof. We will see that in a lock later on. So now we've reached our position here in the lock, and now it's time to go up. Of course, this will also take quite a while, but it's going faster than you might think. Here you can see the speed we are going up now, 24.67 meters. And here we've just reached the top, and now we're continuing on 25 meters higher than before, sailing past the harbor of Roth and going on another bridge over a river, but a much smaller one. And then we are reaching already the next very impressive and huge lock, the Loch Eckersmühlen. Right next to this lock there's also an artificial lake, as it's also possible to transport water from the Danube to the north if there is not enough water in the northern part of Bavaria, and this water can be stored here in this artificial lake, which is right next to the lock. So as you can see, the lock looks exactly the same. They are all three the same, but it's also impressive 3 times, and here you can see how it looks through the glass roof. So also from inside you can get the idea of how big these locks are. Also, this is quite impressive view. And here we are already in the third lock. Last one, is only 4 kilometers between the second and the third lock. This is the lock of Hilpoltstein, and here we can see it again from the inside through the glass roof. So also this view, in my opinion, is pretty spectacular. So you have a lot of options on how to watch the ship going into the lock if you're traveling on the Excellence Princess. Here we can see it again, and there's a third option from where you could view the ship going into the lock, and that is the terrace aft of the ship behind the specialty restaurant. There you can also go outside and enjoy the view from there, which actually turned out to be one of my favorite views because you're a bit closer to the engine, so you have a bit more of a feeling of being on a ship. And most probably you will be there on your own because it's a place that's not too easy to find, so I would also recommend going there to watch the ship going into a lock. And now we can enjoy a bit of this impressive views of the ship being in one of the biggest locks in Germany and the highest lock in Germany. Once we've left the lock, the weather changed and got pretty bad. We are now getting close to the so-called Wasserscheiden monument. I'll tell you a bit more about this later on. But just a few minutes before, quite a strong thunderstorm started, but I stayed outside on the front terrace where you have a roof, so I stayed dry, but it was quite impressive to watch this thunderstorm. And here we can see the Wasserscheiden monument, which means watershed monument, because we are just right now on the European watershed. This is also the highest point of the Main-Danube Canal, and there is this monument consisting of a 144 meters long and up to 40 meters high wall by the artist Hans-Jörg Vogt. The watershed means that all water south and east from here will go to the Danube and the Black Sea, and all water north and west from here will go to the Atlantic Ocean. In the meantime, the thunderstorm got stronger. We got some stronger winds and stronger rain, and it got more and more impressive to view, so I decided to stay outside, of course covered by the roof, but still outside to enjoy this impressive thunderstorm. And here we can also see that it got a bit stronger. The storm actually came out of nowhere and just lasted for a few minutes, and after that the weather got nice again. But as you can see, it was quite a strong thunderstorm, and I was grateful that we had a great captain. As you can see, the ship is still going in a straight line even though we had very strong winds. So that was quite impressive to see, and yeah, as you can see now the sun is slowly coming back. weather's getting better again. It was just the one storm cell right above us, and just a few minutes later the weather was nice again. We even got treated with a nice rainbow, which we will see in a second. Here you can see the sun already coming back, and still the dark clouds in front of us. And here we can now see the beautiful rainbow in a second. Here we can see another of the low bridges. I think it's again clear to see why Sundeck is not open all the times. And we can see the very nice sun. And here you can see the rainbow in the front of the very black and dark clouds. But as you can see here, the sun was already back. Very beautiful weather now, the calm after the storm. So that was quite nice to see, and I spent a lot of time outside actually. But then it was time to head aft of the ship, because I had a reservation in a specialty restaurant, which is a steakhouse, and this is the fantastic view you have from there. I was not expecting just a few minutes after this thunderstorm to have this impressive and just simply beautiful view. So I think I chose the perfect day to have dinner there. My recommendation, if you want to go to eat there, is always make sure that the ship is sailing, because you have this fantastic view from there. And of course it's much nicer when the ship is actually sailing. Of course there's also some nice food. Here you can see the setup of the table with bread, some dips. I also decided to take a glass of wine to enjoy this beautiful evening with the last rays of sunshine. And this was my starter, grilled halloumi cheese. And slowly the sun was going down. I was enjoying the last bits of daylight. And then we were going into the next lock, which is the lock of Bachhausen. Of course, less spectacular than the last three locks, only 17 meters high, which is also very, very high for a lock, but of course less than 25 meters. That was my main course, a very nice steak, and for dessert I had a cheesecake. Pepper service of course was available as well, so it was a wonderful and nice dinner. I really enjoyed it, and I can highly recommend visiting this restaurant. It's, by the way, included in the cruise fare. But that's it for this video. Here you can see when the next video will be uploaded. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to comment, like, subscribe or share the video link, and I hope to see you in my next video then.